And then I came to Vancouver, and I felt that our Indian food had not been represented properly. We became best of doctors and lawyers and engineers, but Indian food was always considered ethnic. It was always like under the carpet. Like it was considered cheap, and it was considered that you should just serve out the food the way you do, and it's all buffets. And I took on that goal to say that no, my cuisine is as complex as any cuisine in the world, and my cuisine is as unique as any other cuisine in the world. And
Hello and welcome to the Indian Diaspora podcast. Today we have a very special personality. It's Chef Vikram Vij from Canada. He is he is an internationally renowned chef, a television personality, a cookbook author, and an entrepreneur. He owns very successful restaurants in Canada, and he has had an international journey that is so representative of the Indian diaspora. Vikramji, welcome to the podcast.
pleasure, namaste. So looking forward to sharing my journey and my stories with our readers, and hopefully inspiring a few of them to pursue their goals and their wishes, what they want to do in life, and wishing them all the best.
Vikramji, we are delighted to have you with us. So let's start from Canada. You own 3 restaurants in Canada in Vancouver area, if I'm not wrong, right? What are your restaurants?
Well, up till 2024, I had a whole chain of restaurants. I had Vij's restaurant, Rangoli, My Shanti. I had a food truck, and 2024, I made the decision to downsize everything and get rid of all the access. And because COVID was so tough on the restaurant business, I decided to bring it down to one Vij's. So all of them amalgamated into one Vij's, which is on Cambie Street. So there's one Vij's, and then I have other partnerships with Bombay Frankies and a few other restaurants around in Toronto area.
Hmm. Now, did you always choose Western Canada, or you stumbled upon it in your travels? How did Vancouver area happen to you?
Well, I had come to Canada and I worked at the Banff Springs Hotel, which is an iconic hotel in Canada,
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
Banff. And I was working there for a few years. And then I decided I had been living in all the places which were like always super cold, like Banff and Austria and France and different places. And there was always ski resorts. I just wanted to come and try out something new and be by the ocean and try out the ocean. So I came to Vancouver and I just fell in love with Vancouver. It was a beautiful city. It had a very diverse population of Indians, uh, you know, Chinese and non-Indians in that sense. And I just felt really comfortable and welcomed by this city, that I felt that Vancouver is where I belong and where I want to start my first restaurant. So I opened up my first restaurant in 1994 called Vij's, which has lasted for 30 years now and has become an iconic brand in the city of Vancouver.
Excellent. What a journey in life. In fact, we're going to understand more of your journey, in Austria and before that. Why don't we begin from your childhood? Vikramji, where were you born in India?
Well, I'm originally from Amritsar. I'm a Hindu Punjabi from Amritsar. I grew up in Delhi and Bombay. My father had moved from Delhi to Bombay. And then at the age of 19, I decided to go to Austria to become a chef.
Hmm.
But prior to that, I actually wanted to join Bollywood. I wanted to act on stage and I wanted to be a performer on stage and I wanted to, sing and dance and I love drama. But, one day, as Indian fathers can be sometimes, sat me down and said, no son of mine is going to become a chef, going to become an actor.
Mhm.
And I was like, what's the next best thing I love to do? I mean, I loved food, I loved cooking, I loved people. So I decided to apply to the school in Austria, and they accepted me. And I didn't speak a word of German at the time, but they said, if you take this course, you can become you can come to Canada, come to Austria. And I
Mhm.
was like, okay. So I took this small little course in German, and I landed in Austria. An Indian guy with a little bag, and lands in a country that doesn't speak language. So having come from India, where you were pampered and taken care of completely, coming from an upper middle class family in the sense, and then going to Austria and having to not be able to speak the language, not able to eat because we were mostly vegetarian and Austrians are all meat eaters, was extremely difficult. And language was a huge barrier because you need to speak to people and express yourself how you want. So here's a 19-year-old boy having a really hard time communicating, because for first 19 years I had gotten so much love and respect and from the family, and here I was by myself in Austria, surrounded by people that I had no clue who they were and what they were saying. But we Indians have a little bit of that personality of that we figure it out kind of a thing, right?
Mhm.
And slowly and steadily, I learned German really well. 6 months went by, and I started picking it up. And the next thing I knew that I was being accepted, and it was a 3-year course, and I
Mhm.
passed with flying colors, and I was really well loved and respected there. And then Austria was 6 years approximately, working in different places. And, I mean, I speak German fluently now, but when I look back now at that time, I was never allowed to work in any country for more than 6 months,
Mhm.
because as Indian citizens, you were only allowed 6 months of visa. So I would go to Germany for 6 months, and then I would go to France for 6 months. And at that time, I lived literally out of a suitcase for 6 months, because you could never really either have a girlfriend or a relationship or anything else, and it was very, very tough. But then there was a general manager of the Banff Springs Hotel who was having dinner at my restaurant, at the restaurant I was working at, and he wanted something spicy. And my mom had given me some garam masala, and I
Mhm.
took some goulash soup and I spiced it up a little bit and I made a little tadka out of it. And I
Mhm.
presented to him, and he loved it. And then he
Mhm.
called me over and he said, you made this dish. It's absolutely delicious. Um, do you want to come to Canada? And I was
Mhm.
like, Canada? Why would I go to Canada? Like, I was, studying in Europe, and I was working in Europe, and the food in Europe was totally my style, the food and the wine and everything else. And he said, I think guys like you should come to Canada because it's a young country, it's a vibrant country. You'll really enjoy it. It's a beautiful space. And I said, I wasn't hesitant, but I said,
Mhm.
what the hell? We take chances in life. So I said,
Mhm.
we'll see what happens. And sure enough, I took the chance. I went to Banff, and I worked at the Banff Springs Hotel. And when I landed and I started working there, I realized that Canada was going to be the country where I'm going to belong and end up,
Mhm.
because I felt loved, respected, and
Mhm.
felt that our systems were very similar to the Indian systems. And I felt, really good. And hence I came and I lived at the Banff Springs Hotel for 3 years. I worked my ass off. I really rose up. And then I came to Vancouver, and I felt that our Indian food had not been represented properly. We became best of doctors and lawyers and engineers, but
Mhm.
Indian food was always considered ethnic. It was always like under the carpet. Like it was considered cheap, and it was considered that you should just serve out the food the way you do, and it's all buffets.
Mhm.
And I took on that goal to say that no, my cuisine is as complex as any cuisine in the world, and my cuisine is as unique as any other cuisine in the world.
Mhm.
And we need to be proud of our cuisine and our culture as Indians. And hence the journey of Vij's that started, 30 years ago, by staying true to the roots of India, using Indian spices, Indian flavors, but presenting it in such a way that people were palatable and able to enjoy um, Indian food, and they could look at it
Mm.
and say, "Yeah, I understand. Okay, this is a little bit of French influence, but or European influence, but the flavors are very authentic. The flavors are
Mm.
Indian." And
Mm.
so that's been the goal of mine, to bring awareness to the cuisine and the culture that I left behind and I love so much, called India.
Yeah, greatly uh, summarized your journey there. For me, I'm just imagining from the beautiful Alps of Austria to the beautiful Rocky Mountains of Banff. You must be having adventure in that stage of your life, and also tying that with the mission of bringing Indian cuisine at its rightful place to the world. What a journey, Vikramji.
Thank you,
Now,
but it's not been a journey without hard work, because when
Mhm.
the Indians came into the restaurant and when the non-Indians came into the restaurant, all they knew at that time was butter chicken and chicken tikka
Mm.
masala and tandoori
Yeah,
chicken. That was the mindset. And
yeah,
that's what they thought that Indian food was. And here I was saying, no, have Vijay's family chicken curry, or have lamb popsicles, or have the
yeah,
goat meat that the way I've cooked it, which was
right.
slightly different. So it has been 30 years of holding people's hands and saying, just do me a favor, just taste the food. If you don't like the food, you don't have to pay for it. But
Mm.
at least do me the honor of tasting my food. You come to my house, and that's why the restaurant is called Vij's.
Mm.
It's not Cuisine of India. It's not called Taj Mahal. It's not called
Yeah.
Laziz Cuisine of India. It's called Vij's. It means you come to my house, and that's what I've cooked for you.
Mm.
And so it's 30 years. People look back and say, "Oh my God, you survived 30 years," but you forget that it's 30 years of going into the restaurant every day, making
Yeah,
sure that the people are taken care of, make sure
sure.
that the people are being explained what they're eating, how they're eating, what they're eating. And sometimes going
Right.
to the people and say, why are you using knife and fork? Why don't you use your hands to open
Hmm.
that piece of bread and mopping it
Hmm.
up? And people looking at me saying, who are you to tell me this? And I'm like, but you're eating my food, so you must use your hands to enjoy my food.
I That's great to hear, right? If a French chef can have that, what's the right word? Swagger, right? Why can't we have that swagger for Indian food,
Correct.
in the way Indian cuisine should be had?
And the thing is, if a French chef can say you should eat an appetizer first, then you should
Yeah.
have the main course. You should use these cutlery. You should use these knives, these wines that go well with it. Why
Mm-hmm.
can I not pair that with my Indian food as well? I have
Hmm.
studied it. I know it. I'm a trained sommelier. I'm a certified sommelier. I'm able to put those things together.
Yeah.
Just the cuisine is different, and what's wrong with it? And I actually want people to enjoy the food,
Mm.
you know, with their hands if they can, because
Yeah.
there's no other cuisine in the world that's tastier with your hands. When somebody takes that last piece of naan bread and mops up that sauce and
Hmm.
eats it, for a
Hmm.
chef, that's the biggest compliment you can ever receive, that somebody's
Yeah.
mopped your plate up. It's not
Mm.
how much you've ordered, it's how much you've enjoyed that dish.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm sure every viewer who's watching this knows how Indian food is the go-to food after they have tried all the adventures. Be it French cuisine, Italian cuisine, you come back to home by mopping up the tasty Indian food.
Correct.
Vikramji, you came to Canada 30 years back, right? Since then, how has the country and its people's attitude towards Indian food evolved?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you what, 30 years ago, we were considered an ethnic cuisine.
Yeah.
We were considered a cuisine that's a little different, flavorful, spicy. Now, people are not just talking about Indian food, people are actually talking about South Indian food,
Hmm.
West Indian food, North Indian food, food from smaller regions of India, because we chefs have done such a good job of representing those small little towns. People are not going to a dosa place and expecting, a North Indian food in that sense. People are saying, okay,
Hmm.
this is a dosa place. That's what I feel like having. That's what they're having. So the dosa is being made. Or if they're going to a Kashmiri style, Mughlai style restaurant, then they're. So it's not just been compartmentalized as one cuisine of one, because India has such diverse cuisines, such diverse flavors.
Hmm.
Why should it just be one way? And here's an example. 1996, when I first opened the restaurant, in 2 years after I'd opened,
Hmm.
one of the very famous magazines in Vancouver gave an award called Best Asian Food to me. I took it in, I accepted it, and then 2 days later, I just didn't feel right. So I went
Hmm.
back to the editor with the plaque and I said, please do me a favor, tell me where India belongs, because it's not fair for you to say best Asian. That means you're comparing me to Japan, you're comparing me to
Hmm.
Singapore, you're comparing me to India, you're comparing me to Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Northern China, Southern China. And I said, you can't put us in one lump sum.
Hmm.
If you're giving awards to best French, best Italian, best
Hmm.
Belgium, then you need to give awards to best Indian, best Malaysian, best Japanese. You need to break that down. You can't just blanket us in one way. And next year, the award ceremony had broken down into Indian, Sri Lankan, Cambodian, Southeast Asia in that sense. It took time, it took guts and balls to go up and say, don't put me in the same category as everybody else does just because I'm of Indian descent. Figure out what India is, where does it belong. So it takes guts to do
Yeah.
and go against the norm of
Yeah.
the of what is available. You make some enemies along the way as well. There were a lot of Indians who thought I was trying to be non-Indian, in the sense of I was trying to assimilate myself into the melting pot. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm being true to myself. I studied in Austria. I learned French cooking. I'm Canadian. I live here now. And so what you're tasting and eating is Vikram Vij on the plate, basically.
Hmm.
You know, you're not tasting any particular region of India. You're just eating Indian food made by Chef Vikram Vij.
Hmm.
And so that took a long time. And today, when you look at things like, when you look at Vikas Khanna, for example, at Bungalow,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
when you look at Manish Malhotra at Indian Accent, when you
Hmm.
look at Vineet Bhatia, for example, when you look at these other co-chefs, you realize that we were pushing our own limits
Hmm.
of creating food,
Hmm.
but the love of the country was still there. The love
Hmm.
of the country that we left behind was still there. So we were when somebody says authentic, we were being authentic to ourselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
We are authentic to ourselves. We are not just
Hmm.
authentic to the country that called India, but we are authentic to ourselves. This is who we are as
Hmm. Hmm.
people who have lived, who were born in India but live abroad now.
Hmm. Hmm. Well said. You mentioned about how there is awareness about regional variances in the cuisine in Canada now, but also how leaders like you have set a space for ourselves by being bold and talking about it. Ask and thou shall receive, right? If you don't speak up or express yourself, how will the world know what you stand for?
Correct. And and
That is
and this
great.
is why I still encourage young chefs to
Hmm.
pursue what they feel is right for them. Don't
Hmm.
follow anybody else. Don't follow just because this chef became successful doing what he did or she did,
Hmm.
doesn't mean that you will be. You need to stick to your own guns and of who you are as a human being.
Yeah, yeah, that is inspiring. Vikramji, moving on, let's take UK. So Indian cuisine has been intertwined with the British cuisine, so much so that, you know, our tikka masala is theirs. You know, every Englishman would have at least one Indian meal once a week, and they love it. It's their cuisine now, right? Do you think Indian cuisine has intertwined yet in the Canadian palate? And where is this going to go in the future with all the Indian migration that has happened in Canada?
So I personally think that a human being or a family or a couple or whoever they are should eat food from different parts of the world once a week. So one day you should eat Italian, one day you should eat French, one day you should eat Indian and Cambodian and Vietnamese and
Mm-hmm.
food from different parts of the world. Because when you eat food from different parts of the world, you understand and you build tolerances towards each other. You learn to respect each other's styles and cuisines and flavors.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. You cannot blanket anyone under any style of cuisine. UK has happened because there were chefs out there are people out there were entrepreneurs out there who created really delicious food, and Indian food is delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So why would it not be integrated? It's delicious. Why would you not eat goodness? If you're a vegetarian, there is nothing better than a dal and a sabji.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a meat eater, there's nothing better than having Rogan Josh or any of those meat dishes that we have. So it's a tasty food. And where we are with Canadians is that we have come a long way in the sense of I do see people going out. If you came to Vij's on a Monday night and it's packed, you realize that it's packed because people want to try different foods in different cuisines.
Yeah.
And we are there with US, we are there with Canada, we are there, maybe not to the extent where British are, because the amount of immigration that's happened. And, Jennifer and I were just in London a few months ago, and we just came back from Morocco, a few weeks ago. And when you look back and you look at those places, Indian food has done a fantastic job of bridging that gap between two cuisines and two cultures. And we should be very proud of it. And yes, we still have ways to go. We still have, more work to do. But we are considered now a part of the Canadian fabric, of the cuisines, of the culture. We are not a melting pot. We are a part of this tapestry where I can wear red color and orange color and pink color and blue color, and I'm part of it. I don't need to become a part of the melting pot. And I think that's what we should be very proud of, that we have stood the test of time by being who we are and not having to assimilate, but just being true to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited to see where does this go for Canada, and how this big Punjabi and Sikh influence in the Western Canada, the bold cuisine out there. What comes to my mind is poutine. If you look at poutine, great. It's a cuisine locally created, right? A blend of French cuisine and perhaps the English influence, right? What's coming to my mind is what new innovation would happen in Western Canada or Canada, where a cuisine India is going to shape that cuisine. And I take example of Caribbean, where India has shaped, has blended with Caribbean influences and created sort of new genre of cuisine. I'm curious to see what's going to happen in Canada in that
Well,
regard.
I think what's going to happen in Canada is a lot of deliciousness on the plate, but with a hint of
Yeah.
French service or a hint of Italian style service, like road tableside service. I mean, it's been done all the time. I mean, when we talk about pani puri, for example, pani puri is
Yeah.
the classic example of where You go to a stand and you eat that food right away, right there and then. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in French, we call it garde service, where you go to the table and you mix the salads right there and then you
Yeah.
serve it. You know, so I think it's very important for us where we're going with this. I think we cannot forget that we should not be saying this is Indian cuisine. We are the largest democracy of food, basically. Nobody can say this is the way it should be because
Mm-hmm.
if you look at chai, for example, chai is made in India in every household slightly differently. Nobody can say that chai should have the ginger and the black pepper and the garlic and the spices in it.
Mm-hmm.
My father is also Indian and he doesn't like all those spices. I love those spices.
Mm-hmm.
So what the acceptance of the cuisine is going to be, that we are going to take traditional cuisine, whether it's poutine, whether it's pasta, whether it's a steak, whether it's a piece of chicken, basically. And we're going to combine that with those little flavors here and little flavors there and enhance the flavors. So instead of just putting a black peppercorn sauce on a steak, we might be adding a little bit of a garam masala sauce on top of it with some mushrooms,
Yeah.
and people are going to accept it and enjoy that,
Yeah.
and that is where the cuisines are meant to constantly change and flow. You
Yeah.
cannot put a cuisine it's like music
Yeah.
has changed. 50 years ago we used to listen to music in a certain way. Today the music is completely changed.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying that music is wrong. The 50-year-old music was also great, but the music that's coming out now is also great. So
Yeah.
it's a respect of an individual, of a personality, of a person that makes it.
I love that reflection here. This reminds me of a story. My Italian friend from Italy, it's a sacrilege for him to have pesto on pizza. But here in USA, a lot of restaurants are going to serve pesto and pizza or pineapple Hawaiian pizza, right? And it's proudly American, you know? And, yes, it's going to ruffle some feathers of traditionalists, but that's how an identity of a cuisine shapes up and a new nation. So, great
But
reflections
if
there,
you
Vikram.
but if you look at Chinese Indian cuisine, for example, the
Yeah,
Hakka cuisine that came from there, it's the same
right.
thing. It's rooted
Yeah,
in Chinese food, but created Indian style. What's wrong with
yeah,
that? I think it's totally acceptable and totally fine.
exactly. Exactly. And that's
You
how a
know,
new identity forms up, you know?
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think when traditionalists say no, this is the way it is, I think it's a little bit of a hypocrisy to say that's the way the tradition should be. I mean, look at the wine culture, for example. There is a
Yeah.
Chardonnay grown in France and there's a Chardonnay grown in British Columbia. It can't be the same. It
Hmm.
won't be the same. Just because the grape has the same name doesn't mean it's the same thing. The garam masala in India tastes different than the garam masala in Canada. And it has to be different. It can't be the same. And it shouldn't be the same. I don't want flavors of India in Canada to taste exactly like that. That means I would have to use Indian water, Indian region, Indian heat, Indian everything, and it's not going to happen. So I have to
Yeah.
be respectful of my surroundings and where I am and what I'm doing.
Yeah. Jaisa desh, vaisa bhesh. When in
Ah,
Rome, love it.
do
Now,
as the Romans do.
love that. Now, I want to go back to your mind as an innovator, right? So you keep on seeking inspiration by traveling, for example, to London or Morocco, right? First question, what you learn, how do you bring that back to your craft, right? Second, what are your other sources of inspiration as a creative innovator in your field?
Well, traveling to me is one of the biggest forms of learning. You can read as many books as you want, but unless you go and travel to that location. So whether we were in England and traveling, whether we were in Morocco and traveling and tasting the food, the way the couscous is made there, the way they eat the dates, the way they eat the lamb, the way they eat the chicken, those are all broadening your horizons. You're not going there just to going there as a chef. You're going there as a student and saying, teach me how you made this couscous. Teach me how you made these carrots. Teach me how you made this chicken tagine, for example. And that, to me, is the best way to learn, is by traveling. You know, go to Japan and learn the traditions of how they eat sushi. And then you come back and then you learn. And it's okay here if somebody's putting imitation crab in your sushi roll, for example. But at least go to Japan and see how they eat them and what their food culture is. And I think that, to me, is the best way to travel and experience the world, is by traveling. If you don't travel, you can read as many books as you want. You're never going to understand it. You need to travel in order to feel, understand, why do South Indians eat food in a certain manner? Why is it that the South Indian food has more pepper in it than the North Indian food? Well, because it's so hot there that you need to sweat. And because you need to sweat, you need to cool your body down. So there's a reason why people eat black pepper. You can't read that. You can't understand. You have to travel.
Great point. Now, let's say tagine, for example, in Morocco, right? When and how do you decide, hey, could I bring a tagine into Indian cuisine and Vij's restaurant and create something new, right? Do you have a process on bringing a foreign learned influence and making it your own?
You can. Because, so you don't need to use the couscous to make the tagine, for example, right? Only. You can just roast your vegetables and your chicken in a tagine form and serve it at the table and open it up like the dome, like the French have done it always, or the Italians have done it. They open the dome up, for example. You can broaden it up. You don't need to serve Moroccan chicken only in tagine. Tagine is just a vessel to bring it to your table. But the style of cooking. So, for example, a Hyderabadi biryani that's done in a little clay pot and has a little, naan or a crust on top of it. That form can be brought, and what is inside has to taste delicious, and it doesn't have to be exactly Indian or non-Indian. So I can do a couscous easily with an Indian chicken curry and do well with it. I don't think anybody can stop me from it. As long as people see and taste the passion of the food that's behind it, that's all that matters. They should be able to see that there is a love and passion put behind that chef and that kitchen. And it's no different than if I come to some woman's house or somebody's house, even if they give me a chapati with onions and a salt, but if it's made with love and care and passion, it's totally acceptable. It doesn't have to be high end. So I think people need to understand that the food and the passion of the chef has to be behind the food, and then it builds itself up in flavors.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We always hear this about love, right? How do you package love? I mean, my point is, it doesn't come forced. It comes from the heart. And any successful chef, tea stall owner, food stall owner, big 5-star restaurateur, all of them share this love that you can't fake it. I mean, it comes from your soul, and you can't package it.
And I think that's why I tell people, if you go somewhere and you taste there is love in that food. Let's say, like if we were in Morocco, for example, we went to this Thai chai stop. The guy was so proud of himself. He had fresh mint there. He gave us taste of the fresh mint. And he made a chai with Moroccan tea with like fresh mint in it. And all of us just sat there and said, especially Jennifer and I, just sat there and said, wow, this is amazing. This is so good. This is so amazing. You can't buy love. You can't replicate it. You can't just put it in there. It has to show. And it shows when your food shows up. It shows when you taste it. You know that the chef has tasted it. You know that the person's done what they have done. So it's very important to realize, it's like music. If you are not into music, or you don't like to play an instrument or can't sing, it'll show on stage that you don't feel like singing. It'll show that you're not interested in it. It'll show that you're not there. Food is like that. A computer or an Excel sheet is exactly the same. Whether you press one command or the other, it's always the same because that's
Mm.
the science of mathematics, you know.
Mhm.
Whereas cooking is not that. Making wine is not that. Um, Making music is not science. It's just what you feel from your heart. And so you can't learn that. You can't go and buy that. You have to love it.
Mm. 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 Worth reflecting. Vikram, gee, I want to come back to your side of performer. You said you love drama. You've been a television personality, right? For those who do not know, talk to us. Besides cooking, right? What performances, drama, or even TV shows you have been part of, and how do you, uh, keep involved in that part of yours, and maybe how do you bring that side, how you could cross pollinate, learnings from that side into your cuisine, and being a chef, and maybe the other way around.
So, I mean, I've done a lot of TV shows. I did Chopped Canada, I did Recipe with Riches, I was a Dragon and Dragons Den.
Yeah.
Um, I just finished a show in Punjabi called Canada the Super Chef, which is in Punjabi. It's a 12-year series. It comes on PTC Punjabi. Very
Mhm.
popular, very, well respected show. How do I envision that? So what I do is food has to be my medium, but I need to bring attention to that. So the food becomes the integral part of it. So all the shows have been food driven. The drama
Mm.
is in the food itself. The drama is in
Mm.
the presentation of the food. The
Yeah.
drama is in the texture of the food. The
Mm.
drama is in that taste of that food. That's the
Mhm.
drama I love to create.
Mm.
Um, how do I bring the food into the drama? So when I do the drama, I bring the food aspect of it. I always compare it to say, well, if you tasted chicken from here and here, this is what it'll look like. Or if you tasted this here. So I bring both the elements. And to be honest with you, when
Yeah.
at 5:30, when the restaurant is open, when the
Mm.
curtains are drawn, it is
Mm.
stage acting, it is performance.
Isn't it?
It is
Absolutely.
like an orchestra that is either fully in tune itself, and some days if you have a bad day, then your dishes don't taste well and the dishes don't come out well.
Yeah.
So so it the drama continues in every aspect of it, even in the restaurant industry. At night time when you go, people want that experience, people want that ambience, people want that wow factor. So whether
Mm.
a little bit of pouring of the wine here or pouring of the water right there, or adding the sauce right there, or adding this to it, that is what drama is. It's a theater at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
drama, a restaurant is basically a theater. When you look at
Yeah.
some of the movies that have been made about it, it is pure theater. It's pure drama,
Yeah.
you know,
Precisely.
uh, because the curtains are drawn at 10 o'clock when the restaurant shuts down. And then
Yeah.
you always see all the actors get rid of their clothes and, they go to the back alley and, has a cigarette or a glass of wine or something like that, because that's like, it's relaxing. It's okay. So restaurants are a theater. They're a drama completely.
I love that analogy. And speaking of movies, I get reminded of the movie Chini Come,
I was
by
just I was just going to mention that the Taboo and Amitabh Bachchan did a fantastic
yes,
job in
fantastic movie.
Chini Kam, and I loved it. And I was just going to mention it and said that was the drama that he created. It was a beautiful drama. It was a great movie.
Yeah.
But like if you look at movies like Water for Chocolate, for example,
Hmm.
um, unbelievable movies. Restaurants are theaters basically. Just
Mm.
they just happen a different style of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, speaking of drama and theater and maybe a busy kitchen, right? Every chef, has got his style, and Gordon Ramsay, for whatever reason, popularized, high octane, in your face kind of management. What kind of leadership style do you have as a head chef, and how's that evolved over time?
I think I think this is a question that I've been asked before by a lot of people and say, what kind of
Okay.
leadership? So at the time when the heat is on, I
Yes.
am very passionate. Why is
Yes.
this not done properly? Why is the mushrooms not gone out properly? Why is this not happening properly? Why is that not happening properly? Like, I'm very passionate. But
Yeah.
at the end of the night, when the drama is finished and everybody's gone home, when we take the aprons off and we sit down and we chat, then it becomes a team. We become a
Yeah.
team. So it's like when you're playing cricket, for example, there's hypertension, there's a bowler, there's a batsman, there's a
Yeah.
wicket keeper, there's
Yeah.
there's a hypertension. But when they go back to the pavilion and they take clothes off, it's a team effort. It's a camaraderie.
Yeah.
And so that's what restaurants are. It's not a
Yeah.
single individual thing. For anybody to say that Vikram Vij does this, I say, no, no, no. There's a team, a
Hmm.
huge team of people that's behind or
Hmm.
beside me that is
Hmm.
creating drama the way I have
Yeah.
wanted to create the
Yeah,
drama.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And going back to about or talk about love, right? You have to be passionate about it. As an entire team, um, you got to care about what you do.
And you
And
have to care about them as well because their
yeah,
well-being is very
yeah,
important. There
mhm,
needs to be a respect for each
yeah,
other and say, yeah, this is how this person feels, or this is the
correct,
way the person's cooked. They might be having a bad day. There may be something that's not going right for them.
right,
So it's um, very important for the person who's at the head, at the helm,
yeah,
to remember that at the end of the day, it's food. It's not rocket science. It's
yeah,
delicious food,
yes,
and cook it with love and passion, and that's all that matters.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Vikramji, in this conversation, we are understanding your soul, your thoughts, and how much you care about your craft. I think that's very, very inspiring to a lot of people who are listening to the show. The future. You have done many things in life now. Austria, 30 years in Canada, built many restaurants, built your brand. What do you want your legacy to be?
Money has never motivated me. Money
Hmm.
has never been part of it. I have never been interested in money. I mean, God gave me, and I'm fine with it. I'm very happy about it. But I want people to understand, and the legacy should be, is that Vikram Vij came into this country and he changed the way Indian food is perceived in this country. I think that to me is my legacy. Not how much money or how many shows I did or anything else, but to say he came with a focus to change the the perception of Indian food in North America, and he managed to do it. The fact that we are enjoying Indian food to such a wide, wide diaspora of people, of human beings, whether they're Italians or French or Germans and everything else, they are able to understand the food. And I've been able to bridge that gap between the cultures and cuisines because I've always believed that when you break bread with people from different ethnicities, from different cultures, from different backgrounds, you learn to build tolerances towards each other. You learn to understand each other. You learn to respect each other. And you will never judge someone just because the color of their skin or what they have, but you will judge them for who they are by tasting the food. So I think the legacy should be is Vikram Vij changed the way Indian food is perceived in this country. And to
Hmm.
me, that single handedly is the most important part.
Hmm.
I want to be recognized not for, oh, he did this show or he did this or that. I want to be recognized for, wow, he came and people respected him
Yeah,
and understood where he came from.
yeah, that's beautiful. Culture is written by pioneers like yourself, Vikramji, as we discussed.
Thank you.
Um, Vikramji, we want to talk about what does it mean to be Indian Canadian or Canadian Indian, and we we proudly do not leave our culture, but we, Vasudev Kutumbakam, right? But we also make our karma bhumi where we live our own. right? I want to understand from your words, your experience, what does it mean for you to be Indian Canadian?
So I feel that I am the best unappointed ambassador of India because wherever I go, I talk about me being Indian. I'm Indian. I'm proud of it. Even though I'm not appointed, but I'm the best unappointed ambassador of India. And I am the best unappointed ambassador of Canada because Canada is the country that has given me so much love, so much respect. And I have managed to fulfill my dreams and follow my dreams of where we are. So, what does it mean to be an Indo Canadian? It means to be an Indian Canadian in the sense that I am a Canadian now. I've been living most of my life here, but my roots are Indian. My certain styles and my qualities are very Indian, and I can never change that, and I don't want to change that. I'm happy, completely happy being who I am as an Indo Canadian. And I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm comfortable in who I am as a human being. And I think that's what it means. So representing the, the country of your birth
Mm-hmm.
with where I'm living today, which is the country called Canada. And
Hmm.
so I always say this I come from one of the largest democracies in the world called India. But I live in one of the best democracies in the world called Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that summarizes Vikram Vij,
Yeah. The best of both worlds.
best of both worlds.
Lovely. With this, Vikramji, we will move to rapid fire round of questions. Last
Okay.
segment, we'll have some fun. So, are you ready for this? Don't think this is the
Yes.
shoot. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So, besides Indian cuisine, your favorite cuisine is?
Uh, I would say Indian Chinese or Chinese Indian or sushi. I can't, as a chef, I cannot say I like one cuisine better than the other. It's like when somebody comes to my restaurant and says, "What's your best dish?" And I look at them and say, "I created all these dishes as one of my best dishes." Like you don't ask Mohammed Rafiji that, "Oh, what's your favorite song?" He will say, "I created all these songs. I sang all
Yeah.
these songs with same amount of love and passion." So I would
Yeah.
never want to say one cuisine is better than the other.
Okay.
What do I enjoy? I enjoy
Yeah.
sushi. What do I enjoy? I enjoy pasta. What do I enjoy? I enjoy French food. I love everything. So I would never say
Yeah.
one is my go-to
Got
cuisine.
it. Got it. All right. Love it. But into Chinese, the world actually does not know. They actually do not know. And we have talking to a lot of people who are bringing Indo-Chinese identity cuisine to, let's say, America. That's
Correct.
fascinating. Yeah, and it's Hakka noodles, for example, or Manchurian. That's excellent cuisine that the world should know about.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Uh, a place in India that the world should travel to.
Oh, I would say Amritsar
Hmm.
because I was born there, and going to the Golden Temple, um, going in the morning there is just beautiful.
Yeah,
But if you want to see a monument, go to Taj Mahal. Doesn't get any better than that.
yeah, yeah. What beautiful places. I'm
Yeah.
sure, yeah, a lot of people go to Taj Mahal, but the Golden Temple in Amritsar, it's got a special energy. Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Next, an Indian Canadian that the world should know about,
An Indian Canadian that the world should know about other than me?
other than you.
Oh my God. There are so many great Indo Canadians that have done. When you think about Indian politicians, we've done so well there. Business philanthropists. I wouldn't want to name one human being because I know them so well,
Sure.
all of them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to say one person more than anybody else, but I would say
Sure.
we as Indians should be proud of each and every one of them. I was just in Brampton doing a cooking show, and that mother that didn't get the recognition, but came with no language skills in 1960s uh,
Hmm.
is today has brought up
Yeah.
kids that are engineers and doctors. I think she should be recognized, or he should be recognized,
Yeah.
that father. So I don't
Yeah.
want to say one person, but there are so
Sure.
many great stories of, and they are very heartwarming stories. When you hear them, they're like,
Yeah.
wow, that's humanity, you know?
Absolutely. And I resonate with you because just because you do not know them or they're not a big name, their struggles are, you know, not less significant.
Correct.
Every person who's traveled beyond their comfort zone, their home, is a hero who's trying
Yeah,
to make it in a new
correct,
land.
correct.
Fascinating.
Because it's not easy to be uprooted from your own country
Yeah,
and your own comfort zone and be grafted on top of a new country in that sense.
absolutely. Absolutely. And finally, a place in Canada that one we should travel to.
Oh my God. Uh, I think a place in Canada you should come to is Vancouver because
Hmm.
it's just surreal and it's beautiful, and the mountains and the ocean, and it's one of the most beautiful cities and diverse, and go to different pockets of Vancouver where you can go and have Indian food, and you can have Chinese food, and you can have Vietnamese food, and you can have Cambodian food. And Vancouver is very diverse in that sense. You know, it is, I wouldn't want to say, um, it is one of those cities that truly embraces multiculturalism and embraces um, respect for each and every culture. And I
Hmm.
really believe Vancouver is the place to be.
Excellent. Excellent. Vikramji, we will
Yeah.
end this conversation with a message. If there is a message you want to give to a young person who wants to be a chef, be it in Amritsar or Toronto, what would you want to say finally?
I would politely say work hard, work hard, work hard, have a goal in life, work hard, and work harder to get to your goal that you want. Not, don't take it for granted. There is nothing, there is no, there is no way of surviving. You just have to do what you have to do.
Very practical, honest, straight to the point feedback. Vikramji, you have been a delight. Your journey in life is very inspiring, and 100% sure you're going to leave the legacy that you talked about of creating a space for brand Indian cuisine in Canada.
I'm truly
Thank you so much
humbled
for
that
joining us.
I'm truly humbled that you asked to talk to me about this. I would only say it was a pleasure listening to your questions and answering them. I did the best I can, and I did. And welcome to this podcast, and hopefully, we see more and more of people out there on there, and it's an honor.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining
Pleasure.
us today.
Thank you, Srivastava.